Hello and welcome. Find a comfortable position. Let your shoulders fall, your hands rest. You've come to the right place for a story, a slow story, meant for the quiet hours of the night. Tonight, we're traveling far, not just in distance, but in time. We are going to the 14th century Malian Empire, to a city of sand and scholars, a place called Timbuktu. We have a full day ahead of us there. A day of quiet, steady, dusty streets, and the meticulous, painstaking work of copying a book. It's a day full of intellectual pursuits and very fine sand. Honestly, you probably won't make it to lunchtime before you're fast asleep, and that is perfectly fine. The story will be here for you when you return, if you enjoy drifting off to the pages of the past. Please consider a gentle tap on the like button and perhaps subscribe to Sleep with Stories. It helps our small channel reach other weary minds. And if you feel so inclined, leave a comment telling us where in the world you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always a quiet joy to see where our stories are landing. From a quiet bedroom in Kyoto to a truck parked for the night in Ohio. Now, take a slow breath in. And as you breathe out, let the noise of your day fall away. Let the tension in. Your jaw release. Let your focus narrow to the sound of my voice. Let's ease into tonight's journey. The first thing you're aware of is not light, but a change in the air. It is the pre-dawn cool of the Sahel, a fleeting mercy before the sun asserts its authority over the day. You are lying on a woven mat atop a slightly raised mud brick platform that serves as your bed. A coarse wool blanket is pulled up to your chin, a small comfort against the chill that has crept in through the single unglazed window of your small room. Your alarm clock is a rooster somewhere in the neighborhood, a creature with a strong opinion on everything, and he has just begun his morning's enthusiastic monologue. You don't need to open your eyes to know the geography of this space. It is a simple cube of baked earth, the walls thick and insulating. The floor is packed earth, cool and smooth beneath your feet. When you finally swing them over the side, you are a student, a seeker of knowledge. That is your profession, your purpose, your reason for being in this sun-drenched city so far from your home. Your gaze falls upon the tools of your trade, resting on a low wooden stool. There is your waha, a polished wooden board, about the size of a modern legal pad. Beside it, a small clay pot of ink made from gum, Arabic, and soot, and a reed pen. A simple calamus, sharpened to a fine point. This is your notebook, your chalkboard, your practice sheet. For weeks, you have been writing verses on this board, memorizing them until the shape of the letters and the rhythm of the words are part of your very being, and then washing them away. Some of the younger students, in their zeal, will drink the water used to wash the sacred words from their boards, a ritual of internalization. It's the original brain food smoothie, I suppose, though perhaps a little gritty. You've never been quite so devout. You stand and stretch, the bones in. You're back making a quiet series of pops. The day's task is already waiting for you. It sits in a leather satchel in the corner, a book, a heavy vellum-bound manuscript of Al-Ghazali's philosophy borrowed from your master. Your main task for the day, and for many days to follow, is to copy it. Not exactly a high-octane thriller, which is, of course, the entire point. You are here to learn patience as much as jurisprudence. You're a student at the University of Suncor. But when you picture your university, you do not picture a single grand building with ivy on the walls. That is a European fancy. Here, the university is an idea, a vibrant, sprawling ecosystem of scholarship. It is a collection of dozens of independent schools, each attached to a mosque, or more often to the home of a single master scholar. You are one of perhaps 25 students fortunate enough to study under Sheikh Mohammed, and his courtyard is your classroom. This decentralized model, with its intimate circles of learning, is the great strength of Timbuktu's intellectual life. It is personal, rigorous, and deeply traditional. Outside, the city is beginning to stir. The muffled sound of a donkey's bray reaches you, followed by the soft, rhythmic sweeping of a palm frond broom against a dusty courtyard. The light filtering through your window has shifted from gray to a pale, hopeful gold. It is time to go. You splash your face with water from an earthenware jug, the coolness a welcome shock. You dress not in a uniform, but in a simple, loose-fitting cotton tunic. Historians still debate the exact literacy rates among the general populace, but for you, a member of the clerical and merchant class, it is as essential as water. Your satchel, containing your empty parchment, your ink, and your pens, feels heavy on your shoulder. It is the weight of expectation, the weight of knowledge yet to be transcribed. You pull open your heavy wooden door and step out into the waking city. The street you step into is less a street and more a narrow, winding canyon of sand and shadow. The buildings on either side are the color of the earth they're made from ochre, tan, dusty rose, and they lean towards each other. As if sharing secrets, their flat roofs almost touching overhead. This design is intentional, a simple and brilliant form of passive air conditioning that keeps the lanes shaded and cool for much of the day. The architecture is famous, defined by its massive mud brick walls and the distinctive wooden beams, called torin, that jut out from the facades. They look like decorative pegs, but they are structural, providing support and also serving as permanent scaffolding for the annual replastering of the walls that must happen after the rainy season. The streets are a labyrinth, designed to confuse invaders, and on a Tuesday morning, students who are not yet fully awake, you turn left, your bare feet or simple leather sandals sinking slightly into the soft, silent sand that paves the entire city. There are no clattering carriages here, no cobblestones. The soundscape is muted, softened. You hear the gentle cooing of doves, the murmur of morning prayers from an open doorway, the soft padding of other footsteps. A woman balances a large water jug on her head, her posture impossibly elegant, and gives you a silent nod. Two children, laughing, chase a hoop down a side alley. It is a city of immense wealth, but it is a quiet wealth. The gold that flows from the mines in the south, the salt that arrives in great caravans from the north, that is the city's engine. But its soul, its international reputation, is built on something far more precious. You pass the sprawling, chaotic grounds of the market, which is just beginning to come to life. The smell of baking bread, of ginger, of roasting meat, and the sharper animal scent of camels and donkeys hangs in the air. You pass a salt merchant, a torrid man with his face veiled in indigo cloth, supervising the unloading of massive gray slabs of salt from his camels. He looks pleased with himself, as he should. That salt is worth its weight in gold in the markets to the south. But he knows, and you know, that the book you're on your way to copy, a single manuscript, could likely buy his entire cart, donkey included. Here, books are not just for reading. They are a primary commodity, the most prestigious cargo of the trans-Saharan trade. They are a symbol of status, a store of wealth, and the ultimate luxury good. Your master, Sheikh Mohammed, lives in the Sanker Quarter, the intellectual heart of the city. As you walk, you notice the subtle shifts in attire. The robes of the men are finer, the cotton whiter. The turbans are wrapped with more elaborate care. The obscure cultural shorthand of a scholar's turban can signify his school of Islamic law, his place of origin, or his level of mastery, a silent, wearable resume. You, with your simple tunic, are marked clearly as a student, a work in progress. You arrive at a heavy, ornate door studded with iron. You don't knock. You simply enter the skyfa, a sort of entryway designed to shield the home's interior from public view. From there, you pass into the central courtyard, and there he is, your master. He is seated on a fine rug, his back against the wall of the house, a stack of books beside him. He is an old man, but his eyes are sharp. He has an aura of profound wisdom and a look that suggests he knows you didn't finish all of your assigned reading. He gestures for you to sit. A few other students are already here, settled on mats, their own work before them. The courtyard is open to the sky, but a simple awning provides shade. The air is still and studious. Your master takes the copy of Al-Ghazali from your satchel and places it on a low, carved wooden stand. He then hands you a small stack of loose, unbound sheets of parchment. It is not paper, which is more common for less important works, but fine, smooth vellum, likely from a goat or an antelope. The precise methods for making the most brilliant white vellum and the smoothest paper are not perfectly understood by modern historians, as the city's artisans guarded their family techniques as closely as state secrets. This vellum is expensive. Making a mistake will not be a trivial matter. Your master taps the first page of his book. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, he says, his voice a low rumble. Begin here, slowly. The ink must be dark, the letters must be clear. God sees your work, but more importantly, so do I. You dip your reed pen into your ink pot, take a breath, and touch the tip to the page. The work begins. Your world shrinks to the space between your eyes and the page. The first dip of the pen is a moment of profound commitment. The ink is a deep, satisfying black, the color of a starless night sky. It pulls for a microsecond at the tip of the calamus before you. Draw the first stroke of the first letter. The vellum beneath your hand is smooth, almost alive, with a subtle texture that grips the ink just so. It makes a quiet, satisfying rasp as you write, a sound that is soon joined by the scratching of other pens around the courtyard, creating a gentle, insect-like chorus of pure focus. This is the sound of knowledge being physically transferred, of an idea being given a new body. You copy the basmala, the opening line, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Your hand is steady, your letters measured. You are not merely transcribing, you are performing an act of devotion. In this world, beautiful handwriting is not just a pleasant skill. It is a mark of piety and a form of worship. The elegance of your script is thought to reflect the clarity of your soul, or at the very least, the clarity of your instruction. A fellow student to your right is known for his flourish, his letters dancing on the page with an almost arrogant beauty. You keep your own hand more conservative, a solid, respectable Maghrebi script, the style favored here in Northwest Africa. You glance at the pristine, expensive sheets of vellum still waiting. Making a serious error on one of these feels like it would carry a heavier penalty than just academic censure. It's the 14th century equivalent of accidentally hitting reply. All on a kingdom-wide announcement. Time begins to dissolve. The sun climbs higher and the slice of blue sky visible above the courtyard deepens in color. A servant, a young boy with silent feet, moves among the students, placing a small cup of sweet mint tea beside each of you. The warmth of the glass seeps into your fingers, a pleasant contrast to the cool, shady flagstones of the courtyard floor. The steam carries the sharp, clean scent of mint, momentarily cutting through the dusty air and the faint, earthy smell of the ink. You take a sip. It is intensely sweet, a jolt of sugar to fuel the mind and steady the hand. This courtyard is the final stage of a long journey. The educational path here in Timbuktu is well defined. As a child, you would have attended a Quranic school, learning to read and write by memorizing the holy book, chanting the verses until they were etched into your memory, writing them out on your wooden walha and washing them away. This was the primary level. After mastering the Quran, you would have graduated to a secondary level of learning. studying the traditions of the Prophet, Islamic jurisprudence, grammar, and rhetoric. And now you are here, the superior level. This is the university. Here you engage in specialized study with a master, delving into logic, astronomy, history, mathematics, and, in your case, the dense and rewarding philosophy of Al-Ghazali. This is the system that has made Timbuktu a beacon of learning, drawing. Scholars from as far as Cairo and Granada. There are no tuition fees, no formal enrollment. You simply find a master who will accept you. You pause to re-ink your pen, watching your master. He isn't reading. His eyes are closed, but, he is not asleep. He is listening. He can probably identify each student by the rhythm of their pen strokes. He is a living library, a man who holds hundreds of books within his memory. His mind is the original hard drive, and you are here to download a few precious files. You wonder for a moment how many hands have cramped copying the very words you are now writing. Al-Ghazali, for all his wisdom, probably didn't give much thought to the ergonomic challenges he was creating for future generations of students. You dip your pen again and continue. The sun beats down on the awning above, and the cities. Sounds which seemed so present at dawn have faded into a low, distant hum. The only thing that matters is the next word, and the word after that. Whether the great scholars of Timbuktu also secretly studied the older, pre-Islamic traditions of herb lore and history from the Jinjino culture is a matter of romantic speculation more than concrete historical evidence. For now, your focus is squarely on the approved curriculum. An hour passes, or maybe it is 3. The sun is now high and unforgiving, and the shade from the courtyard's awning has become a precious, coveted resource. You can feel a single drop of sweat trace a path from your temple down your jaw. Your fingers are stained with ink, and a dull ache has settled into the muscles of your writing hand. You have filled 1 full page, front and back. The script is neat, the margins are straight. You feel a small, quiet surge of pride. You look up as Sheikh Mohammed clears his throat. The scratching of pens immediately ceases. Silence descends, thick and expectant. Kareem, the master says, his eyes landing on a student near the far wall. The author, Al-Ghazali, argues that true knowledge cannot be reached through pure rationalism alone. It requires a spiritual awakening, a direct experience of the divine. How does this relate to the teachings of Ibn Rushd? It's a verbal pop quiz, the master's favorite teaching tool. He is testing not just your memory of the text, but your ability to synthesize, to connect disparate threads of scholarship into a coherent argument. Kareem, to his credit, launches into a thoughtful, if slightly meandering answer. You listen, your mind grateful for the distraction from the painstaking labor of copying. This is the other half of your education. The copying builds discipline and familiarity with the text. But these discussions, these sudden, sharp interrogations, are what build true understanding. It is in these moments that the ink on vellum words transform into living ideas. This entire ecosystem of scholarship is funded by a unique blend of patronage and commerce. Your master, Sheikh Mohammed, is not merely a teacher living on the charity of his students. He is a powerful figure in the city. As a leading legal scholar, he serves as a judge in disputes over trade and inheritance. His signature on a document authenticates a contract, and for that service, he is paid. He is a consultant to wealthy merchants planning their caravan routes, advising them on the law and customs of the lands they will traverse. And most importantly, he is a central figure in the city's most lucrative trade, the book trade. The very book you're copying, once finished, will not be for your own library. It will be sold likely to a scholar in Fez or a wealthy patron in a city to the south for a sum that could purchase a house. The scholars of Timbuktu are the city's intellectual engine, but they are also a key part of its economic foundation. Student Kareem finishes his answer. The master nods slowly, adding a few words of correction and clarification. Then his eyes sweep across the rest of you. He holds up a single, beautifully bound volume. "This book has an ijaza," he says. He explains that this isn't just a book, but a vessel of lineage. An ijaza is a certificate, often written into the first few pages of the book itself, that grants the owner permission to teach that specific text. His ijaza for this particular book is a documented chain naming his teacher and his teachers, teacher and so on, stretching back centuries, ideally all the way to the original author. It is a sacred academic genealogy, an unbroken chain of trust and transmission. Your ultimate goal as a student is to one day earn an ijaza from your master, making you a link in that golden chain. A servant appears with a simple midday meal. It is a bowl of millet porridge with a little goat's milk and a few dates. It is humble, meant to sustain, not to celebrate. The culinary arts, it seems, were not a core part of the official curriculum. As you eat, you think about the value of things. The salt in the market is valuable. The gold from the mines is valuable. But here, in this quiet courtyard, you are creating an object of almost incalculable worth. The exact financial arrangements between a master and his long-term students remain somewhat unclear. It likely varied from formal fees to a system of reciprocal obligation and service, like the copying you are now undertaking. You finish your meal, the simple grain restoring a bit of energy to your tired body. You look from your temporarily blank wooden practice board, the walha, to the permanent, perfect vellum page. From practice to permanence. The master claps his hands softly. The break is over. Al-Ghazali is waiting. The afternoon heat settles in. It is a physical presence, a heavy blanket that smothers the city in a shimmering haze. The sounds from beyond the courtyard walls have all but ceased, as if the entire world has wisely decided to take a nap. Only here, in this shaded sanctuary of scholarship, does the work continue. The gentle scratching of reed pens on vellum is the only sound, a persistent, dry whisper against the profound silence of the siesta. You find your rhythm again, your mind sinking back into the meticulous task. Your hand moves, forming the elegant, curved letters of the Maghribi script, a dance of precision and control. The ink flows from your pen, a dark river of thought given form. You are not using a desk. You, like the other students, are seated on your mat on the floor, one knee raised to support the plank of wood on which your precious vellum rests. It's a posture that would send a modern ergonomist into a state of horrified panic, but for you, it is second nature. It forces a certain kind of stillness, a physical discipline that mirrors the mental discipline required for the work. Your back aches a little, but it is a familiar ache, the dull complaint of a body dedicated to a sedentary craft. You shift your weight, the woven mat rustling beneath you. Your focus is absolute. You're copying a section where Al-Ghazali dissects the nature of doubt, describing it not as a failing, but as a necessary bridge to true certainty. It's a comforting thought. Even this great mind wrestled with uncertainty, so perhaps there's hope for you yet. You glance up for a moment to rest your eyes and see your master has retrieved a curious object. It looks like a complex brass astrolabe. It is a beautiful instrument, a disc of polished metal covered in intricate lines, circles, and scripts. He holds it up to the light, making a small adjustment. This is another facet of the curriculum here. The scholars of Timbuktu are not just theologians. They are astronomers and mathematicians. The astrolabe is essential for determining the precise times for the 5 daily prayers, for orienting the mosques towards Mecca, and for charting the stars to guide the great caravans across the featureless expanse of the Sahara. It is a tool of both faith and science, a perfect symbol of how the two are intertwined in this world. This specific knowledge of the stars is a major historical fact of the era, elevating the Malayan scholars beyond simple theology and into the realm of advanced practical science. Their calculations were trusted by merchants and travelers across the entire region. A lizard, tiny and jewel green, skitters out from a crack in the mud brick wall. It stops in a patch of sunlight, does a quick series of what look remarkably like push-ups, and then darts away. It's a small, fleeting moment of life interrupting the deep, scholarly stillness. You wonder if Al-Ghazali in his great stone halls in Baghdad ever watched lizards while contemplating the mysteries of the universe. Probably not. He was likely too busy being brilliant. You dip your pen, you've reached the bottom of a page. You carefully lift the vellum, the ink now dry, and place it on the finished stack. The sense of progress is palpable. One more small piece of a vast intellectual puzzle. Securely in place, you recall a strange cultural tidbit your master once shared in a lecture on local customs. He spoke of the salt libraries of the desert nomads, certain Tuareg clans who spend their entire lives in the deep desert would preserve their most important documents, genealogies, contracts, poems by encasing them in hardened blocks of salt to protect them from the humidity and insects. A book you could lick. The idea is both absurd and wonderfully practical, a perfect example of desert ingenuity. Scholars still debate how widespread this practice truly was, or if it was more of a localized curiosity. You imagine a library where all the shelves are made of gray, crystalline blocks, a place both savory and scholarly. The thought brings a faint smile to your face. You pick up a fresh sheet of vellum. The clean, creamy surface is an invitation, a silent demand. You take a breath, center yourself, and begin the next page. The quiet work continues, a slow and steady bulwark against the crushing heat of the afternoon. The light in the courtyard is beginning to change. The harsh vertical glare of midday has softened, replaced by a warm, golden slant that paints the opposite wall in hues of honey and apricot. The shadows of the torn beams stretch long across the sand-colored plaster like the fingers of a sundial marking the slow decline of the day. The air, while still hot, has lost its oppressive weight. The city is stirring from its slumber. You can hear the distant, renewed chatter of the market, the braying of a donkey, the laughter of children released from their afternoon confinement. The chorus of scratching pens in the courtyard, however, remains unbroken. You are now deep into a chapter on ethics. The philosophy is dense, the sentences long and complex. It requires a different kind of concentration. Earlier, you were focused on the physical act of forming the letters perfectly. Now, you must also engage with the meaning of the words, lest you make a nonsensical error, the 14th century version of a catastrophic typo. You find yourself reading a line, then closing your eyes to mentally picture its structure before committing it to the vellum. It slows your pace considerably. You look over at your master. He is now reading, his finger tracing the lines of a book of poetry. For a man who could command immense wealth, his personal possessions are few and simple. His luxury is not in gold or fine silks, but in the books that surround him. They are his fortune, his fortress, and his friends. Suddenly, a commotion at the entrance to the courtyard breaks the studious calm. A merchant, sweating and agitated, bursts into the skyfa and speaks in hushed, urgent tones with the servant. The servant then approaches your master and murmurs something in his ear. Sheikh Mohammed marks his page with a thin strip of leather, closes his book, and rises with a sigh. It seems his role as a judge is required. The merchant, who deals in ostrich feathers, a surprisingly lucrative trade, as the feathers are in high demand in European courts for fashionable hats and accessories, is having a dispute with a caravan leader over payment. Your master listens patiently, his head tilted, his expression unreadable. This is the practical application of the abstract legal principles you study. While you're copying Al-Ghazali's thoughts on universal ethics, your master is about to mediate a very specific conflict about a large quantity of fluffy bird plumes. It's a reminder that even in the city of high-minded scholarship, commerce is king and disputes are a daily reality. The master and the merchant retreat into a small room off the courtyard to adjudicate. The brief interruption has broken your concentration. You set down your pen and take the opportunity to stand and stretch, your joints groaning in protest. You walk to the side of the courtyard and dip a cup into a large clay amphora of water. The water is cool and tastes faintly of the earth it was stored in. You drink deeply. Another student, a young man from Gen, joins you. The ink is fighting me today, he whispers, a note of frustration in his voice. You nod in sympathy. Some days the ink seems too thick, the pen scratchy, the vellum unforgiving. There is a strange and obscure belief among some scribes that the mood of the scribe can influence the ink itself. A cheerful scribe, they say, produces a darker, more consistent line. A troubled scribe, a gray and blotchy one. Historians find no scientific basis for this, of course, but as you look at your last few lines, you wonder if your own wandering thoughts have made the ink a little pale. You return to your mat. The temporary absence of the master's stern gaze feels like a small holiday. A few students are whispering amongst themselves, a low murmur that quickly dies down as the servant gives them a sharp look. You, however, turn your attention back to the vellum. You remember the street you walked down this morning, the one with the leaning buildings creating a canyon of shade. You picture it now in the late afternoon light, the shadows reversed, the opposite walls glowing. The city is a living thing, changing with the sun. You think about the immense, slow-moving river of time and knowledge. The words you are copying were written down by another hand in another city centuries ago. And here you are in Timbuktu, giving them new life, ensuring they will be read by another pair of eyes in another time and place. You are a single vital link in a chain that stretches backward and forward through history. The thought is both humbling and deeply motivating. You pick up your pen. The point feels sharp, the ink willing. You lower it to the page, and the quiet scratching resumes. The muezzin's call to the Asar prayer, the third of the day, echoes from the minaret of the Senka Mosque. It is a haunting, beautiful sound that spills over the rooftops of the city and into the courtyard, a resonant and welcome interruption. The sound signals a shift in the afternoon's rhythm. Sheikh Mohammed has concluded his legal mediation. The ostrich feather merchant looks significantly less agitated. So one assumes justice, or at least a compromise, was served. Upon hearing the call to prayer, the master claps his hands together. Softly, "It is time," he says. The students begin to put away their work with practiced care. You carefully place your stack of finished vellum sheets inside your leather satchel, followed by the unused sheets. You cap your inkpot, a small clay lid fitting snugly into the top. You wipe the nib of your reed pen on a small piece of scrap cloth, leaving a dark smudge. This is not the end of the day's work, but a punctuation mark in the middle of it. The separation of spiritual and secular life that is so common in the modern world does not exist here. Scholarship is prayer, and prayer is a scholarly duty. The students file out of the courtyard and walk the short distance to the mosque. The Senker Mosque is not a glittering, domed fantasy. It is an imposing but humble structure of the same earth as the rest of the city. Its most striking feature is its pyramidal minaret, which, like the other buildings, has the characteristic torn beams jutting out from its surface, making it look like it's been pierced by wooden spears. The main prayer hall is a vast, dim space, its roof supported by a forest of thick, square mud brick pillars. The air inside is cool and still, a welcome respite from the lingering afternoon heat. You perform the ritual ablutions, washing your hands, face, and feet at a communal font. The cool water a balm on your skin. You find a place in the neat rows of worshippers on the woven floor mats. The sheer number of books in Timbuktu, estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands by this period, is a major historical fact that points to an intellectual flourishing that rivaled, and in some ways surpassed, contemporary Europe. While a European monastery might have a library of a few dozen, perhaps 100 books, a single private library of a scholar here in Timbuktu could easily contain over 1,000. The city was, quite literally, built on words. Your master, Sheikh Mohammed, owns one of the largest private collections, estimated at nearly 2,000 manuscripts. As you stand for the prayer, you notice a peculiar detail on the man praying. In front of you, tucked into his belt, is a small, intricately carved wooden object that looks like a miniature house. This is a grigri, a talisman containing verses from the Quran, written on tiny scrolls of paper by a scholar and sewn shut. It is a form of protection, a sacred object meant to ward off evil, ensure safe travel, or bring good fortune. This blending of formal Islamic practice with older, local traditions of amulets and charms is a distinct feature of Sahelian Islam. Whether the most orthodox scholars like your master approved of such talismans is a subject of some debate. Many likely tolerated them as a harmless, if slightly superstitious, folk practice. You imagine the man's gree contains a verse about prosperous business dealings, or perhaps just a prayer for less annoying customers. The prayer is a sequence of standing, bowing, and prostrating, the synchronized movements of the congregation creating a gentle, rustling wave. You press your forehead to the mat, the familiar scent of dust and woven palm filling your senses. In this moment, you are not a scribe, not a student, but simply a man in communion with the divine. The murmured words of the prayer are a comfort, a timeless rhythm that connects you to everyone else in the room, to everyone else in the city, to a world of shared belief. When the prayer is over, there is no rush to leave. People linger, greeting friends, exchanging quiet words. The mosque is as much a community center as a house of worship. You see the merchant from earlier, now looking serene, speaking with another trader. You exchange a nod with Kareem, your fellow student. The brief spiritual reset has cleared your mind, and you feel ready to return to your work. You step back out into the golden afternoon light, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The final session of the day's labor awaits. Back in the courtyard, the atmosphere has subtly shifted. The post-prayer, pre-dusk session of study feels different, less intense, more contemplative. The fierce concentration of the morning has been replaced by a quiet, persistent diligence. The shadows have conquered most of the courtyard now, leaving only a few brilliant patches of sunlight on the highest walls. A gentle breeze, the first hint of the approaching evening, stirs the air, carrying the distant scent of wood smoke as families begin to prepare their evening meals. It's the time of day when your focus can either sharpen to a fine point or dissolve completely into daydreams. You uncap your ink, take up your pen, and look at the last sentence you wrote before the prayer. The vellum seems to glow in the soft and direct light. You are copying a particularly tricky passage where Al-Ghazali uses a complex analogy involving light, a mirror, and the sun to explain the relationship between the human soul and divine knowledge. It requires your full attention. You have to admit, for a 12th century philosopher, the man had a flair for the dramatic. You carefully form the words, your hand moving with a practiced economy of motion. You've been at this for hours, and the muscle memory is now doing most of the work. Your mind, however, is beginning to wander. You think about the book trade. The manuscript you're copying is a valuable commodity, but how does it actually get to its final destination? It is not simply mailed. It is entrusted to the most reliable man in the caravan, often the caravan leader himself. He will wrap the book in layers of cloth and leather and place it in the most secure part of his personal baggage. During the perilous journey across the Sahara, a journey that could take 2 months or more, the book is guarded as fiercely as the gold or the salt. Upon arrival in a city like Fez or Tunis, it would be sold in a specialized auction, often held at the city's main mosque after Friday prayers. The auction would be a quiet, dignified affair, attended by scholars, nobles, and wealthy patrons. The bidding would be subtle, a raised finger, a quiet word. This entire sophisticated network of production, transport, and sale made Timbuktu the Amazon.com of the 14th century Sahara, but with a much longer delivery time and a significantly higher risk of camel-related mishaps. Your mind drifts back to the street. You walked this morning. Remember the 2 children you saw, the ones chasing a hoop? You can almost hear their laughter echoing in a side alley now. You wonder what their day was like. Did they go to a Quranic school, chanting verses until their throats were sore? Or did they spend the day helping their mother at a market stall, their small hands learning the weight and feel of millet, of dried fish, of spices? The city is not just scholars and merchants. It is a living tapestry of ordinary lives, of families and workers and children, all living and breathing under the same powerful sun. Historians often focus on the great men and the grand movements of history, but the texture of daily life for the vast majority of people, the taste of their bread, the songs they sang to their children is often lost to time. A scholarly uncertainty we must simply accept. You are jolted from your reverie by your master's voice. He is not addressing you, but the student from Jen, the one who was struggling earlier. Your lettering slants to the right when you grow tired. Ibrahim, Sheikh Mohammed says, without even looking up from his book of poetry, take a moment, recenter your posture. A tired body makes for a lazy pen. Ibrahim murmurs an apology and straightens his back. The master's casual, almost psychic observation is a display of his complete command of his environment. He misses nothing. It's a bit intimidating, but also reassuring. He is not just a lecturer. He is a true teacher, attending to the finest details of his students' craft. The comment serves as a reminder to you as well. You check your own posture, taking a deeper breath. You dip your pen into the ink pot. The sun is sinking lower, and the end of the working day is in sight. You have a few more pages in you. You will make them your best. The sky above the courtyard is now a canvas of deep violet and bruised orange. The sun has fallen below the rooftops, and the city is bathed in the fleeting, magical light of dusk. The day's heat is finally bleeding out of the earth, and the cool evening air feels like a blessing on your skin. From somewhere in the neighborhood, the gentle, melodic plucking of a kora begins, its notes drifting softly on the breeze, a peaceful soundtrack to the end of the day. One by one, the other students are beginning to clean their tools and pack their satchels, their movements slow and deliberate, conserving the last of their energy. Sheikh Mohammed finally closes his book of poetry, setting it aside with a soft thud. He looks at your work, then at the work of the other students still writing. He doesn't offer praise. Praise is not his style. Instead, he offers a final piece of wisdom for the day. Remember, he says, his voice low and resonant in the quiet. Courtyard, a book is not merely a collection of words. It is a garden. You must tend it carefully, weed out the errors, Ensure the lines are straight. Give the ideas room to breathe on the page. Only then will it bear fruit for the reader. It's a poetic, if slightly guilt-inducing metaphor for proofreading. You look down at your last page, suddenly paranoid that you've accidentally written garden instead of God. You finish your final line for the day, the ink looking almost purple in the fading light. You've completed 5 full sheets of vellum front and back. 10 pages. It feels like both a monumental achievement and a comically small drop in the bucket. The original manuscript is over 300 pages long. At this rate, you'll be finished sometime next year, just in time to start your next project. You carefully pack away your vellum, placing the finished pages on top. You cap your inkpot and clean your pen, the familiar ritual marking a clear end to your labor. The ache in your hand is now a thrumming, persistent companion. One of the great historical puzzles of this period is the sheer speed at which books were reportedly copied in Timbuktu. Some accounts claim that scribes here could produce manuscripts faster than their counterparts in European scriptoria. The major historical fact that helps explain this is the nature of the script itself. The Maghribi script, with its elegant curves and potential for connecting letters, allowed for a faster, more fluid hand than the rigid, blocky Gothic scripts popular in much of Europe at the time. Furthermore, the scribes here were not monks in a monastery working as part of a collective, but often independent contractors or students working in a highly competitive and lucrative market. The faster you worked, without sacrificing quality, the more you earned. It was a system that incentivized both speed and skill. Think of it as the difference between building with individual bricks versus pouring smooth, flowing concrete dot. As you get ready to leave, you notice something you hadn't before. Tucked away in a corner of the courtyard is a small clay beehive. A thin trail of bees is returning to it, their legs heavy with pollen. It's a strange and obscure detail for a scholar's home. Beekeeping was not just for honey. The beeswax was a crucial ingredient in certain types of ink and, more importantly, was used to create wax tablets for temporary notes and for sealing important documents. It was another small, self-sufficient piece of the scholar machine, producing a vital raw material right here on site. The quiet, industrious hum of the bees seems a fitting metaphor for the work done in this courtyard. A constant, productive murmur, creating something sweet and valuable from the raw materials of the world. You sling your satchel over your shoulder. It feels heavier now, filled with the tangible results of your long day's work. You give a respectful nod to your master, who is now quietly reciting the evening prayer to himself, his fingers moving over a string of prayer beads. He acknowledges you with a slight inclination of his head, a silent dismissal. You join the other students filing out of the skyfa and back into the street. The sky is now dark, and the first stars are beginning to appear, sharp and brilliant. In the clear desert air, the day is done. You step out into the evening. The narrow street is no longer a canyon of shadow and light, but a tunnel of deepening darkness, lit here and there by the warm, flickering glow of oil lamps placed in niches. By doorways, the sand underfoot is cool now, a pleasure after the heat of the day. The city has a completely different character at night. The sounds are softer, more intimate. You hear the low murmur of conversations from behind closed doors, the clink of pottery as evening meals are served, the occasional soft laughter of a woman. The air smells of wood smoke, roasting spices, and the sweet, heavy scent of night-blooming jasmine from a hidden garden. You are not going straight home. First, you have an errand. Your inkpot is running low, and you need to purchase more for tomorrow's work. You turn away from the direction of your own small room and head towards the scribe's quarter, a small network of streets near the great Jingerber Mosque. This is where the artisans who support the book trade live and work. As you walk, You pass a group of men gathered around a storyteller in a small, lamplit square. He is seated on a rug, his hands weaving pictures in the air as he recounts a tale of gin and clever merchants. His audience is captivated, their faces glowing in the lamplight. This is the other side of the city's intellectual life, the oral tradition, the ancient stories and histories passed down from one generation to the next. It is a form of knowledge as old and as important as the written word. You spend your days copying. You arrive at the shop of an ink maker. It is not so much a shop as a small, open-fronted workshop, the air thick with the sharp, tangy smell of gum arabic and the smoky scent of soot. The ink maker, a wiry old man with hands permanently stained black, is grinding something in a stone mortar. He greets you with a nod, his eyes appraising your student's tunic. The production of high-quality ink was a trade secret, a specialized art form. The best ink, deep, permanent black that wouldn't fade over centuries, was made by carefully burning certain types of wood or old rope to get the right kind of soot, which was then painstakingly mixed with gum arabic, sourced from acacia, trees, and water. The exact recipes and mixing techniques are still not fully understood by historians, as they were passed down within families and never written down. This was intellectual property, guarded more closely than any state secret. The ink maker ladles a measure of the thick black liquid into your clay pot, his movements precise and practiced. You pay him with a few small cowrie shells, the common currency for everyday transactions. Gold was for kings and international trade. Shells were for buying ink and bread. He hands you the pot. A good dark batch, he says. It will make your letters sing. You thank him and continue on your way. You remember the beehive in your master's courtyard. The beeswax you saw being harvested would be used by another artisan, a paper finisher who would mix it with other ingredients to create a glossy, smooth coating for paper, making it less absorbent and allowing for a finer, crisper script. Every part of the bookmaking process was a specialized craft. You were just one small part of a long and complex assembly line of knowledge. Walking home, you take a different route, one that leads you past the Niger River Mosque, the massive structure commissioned by Mansa Musa himself on his return from his famous Hajj dominates the skyline. It is the largest and most important of the city's mosques. In the darkness, its great earthen walls seem to absorb the starlight, giving it a quiet, immense gravity. You see a few other students, probably, from a different master's circle, gathered near the entrance, discussing a point of law under the light of a single lamp. The pursuit of knowledge in this city truly never sleeps. It's like a 24-hour university library, but with more sand and a much more relaxed dress code. You finally reach the familiar wooden door of your own dwelling. You are tired. It is a deep, bone-weary exhaustion, the kind that comes from a day of intense, focused stillness. You lift the latch and step inside, the cool, familiar darkness of your room, a welcome embrace. You close the heavy wooden door behind you, and the muted sounds of the city fall away, replaced by the profound, comforting silence of your small room. The only light comes from the open window, a pale rectangle of deep indigo sky studded with impossibly bright stars. You don't bother with a lamp. Your eyes, accustomed to the dim light of the courtyard, quickly adjust. You can make out the simple shapes of your life, the sleeping mat, the low stool, the water jug in the corner. It is a space of monastic simplicity, dedicated to a single purpose. You place your satchel on the floor with a soft thud. The weight of the vellum pages inside is a satisfying reminder of your day's labor. You resist the urge to pull them out and inspect them. The work is done for today. To look at it now would be to invite anxiety, to spot a crooked line or a misplaced dot that you could do nothing about until morning. You've learned that scholarship, like bread, needs time too. Rest. You pour a cup of water from the earthenware jug. It is room temperature, but it feels cool and reviving as you drink it down. The dust of the day seems to wash from your throat. For your evening meal, you have no kitchen to speak of. Like many students, you rely on the city's equivalent of takeout. Earlier, on your way home, you exchanged a few more cowrie shells for a piece of flatbread and a small bowl of bean stew from a woman selling food from a stall near your home. You sit on the edge of your sleeping platform, tearing off pieces of the bread and dipping them into the thick, savory stew. It is a simple, nourishing meal. As you eat, your mind is blissfully empty. The complex philosophy of Al-Ghazali, the rules of jurisprudence, the art of calligraphy, all of it has receded, leaving only the simple, primal satisfaction of food and rest. A major historical fact about the student life in Timbuktu is its international character. The city's fame was so great that it attracted students and scholars from across the Islamic world, from North Africa, Egypt, and even Andalusia in Spain. This created a vibrant, cosmopolitan, intellectual environment. In your master's courtyard, alone, there are students who speak Semink, Fulfulde, and various Berber dialects as their native tongue, all united by the common scholar language of Arabic. This constant influx of new people and perspectives was a key ingredient in the city's intellectual dynamism, preventing it from becoming stale or provincial. Your fellow student, Karim, for instance, is from a merchant family in a town far to the south, and his perspective on trade law is colored by the practices he grew up with. The debates are richer for it. You finish your meal, wiping the bowl clean with the last piece of bread. You set the empty bowl aside. The night is quiet. There is no town crier, no bell tower marking the hours. Time is measured by the sun, the moon, and the calls to prayer. You stand and stretch, your body stiff from the long hours of sitting. You walk to the unglazed window and look out. The night air is cool and smells of dust and dry grass. Across the narrow alley, a single lamp burns in another window. Perhaps another student burning the midnight oil, or a weaver finishing a piece of cloth. You can see a sliver of the moon, a perfect bright crescent. The sight fills you with a sense of peace. You unroll your sleeping mat fully and lie down, pulling the coarse wool blanket over you. As you lie in the darkness, you recall an obscure cultural practice you once read about. Some of the most dedicated scribes, particularly those copying the Quran, would engage in a ritual fast, eating and drinking very little while working on a holy text. They believed it purified the body and soul, making their hands more worthy of the sacred task. It's a level of dedication you find both admirable and slightly alarming. You, personally, are a firm believer in the purifying power of a good bean stew. You are not sure if this practice was common or simply the habit of a few extremely pious individuals. Scholarly sources are quiet on the matter of scribal diets. You close your eyes. The image of the vellum page, with its neat black lines, is seared into your mind. You can almost feel the phantom sensation of the pen in your hand. But slowly, the image begins to soften and blur, the edges dissolving as the deep, earned exhaustion of the day finally pulls you down into sleep. You are not asleep for long before a sound pulls you back to the edge of consciousness. It is a soft, rhythmic tapping. At first, you think it might be a part of a dream, but it persists, gentle and insistent. You lie still, listening. It's coming from outside, somewhere nearby. It's the sound of a mallet on wood, a soft, percussive beat in the heart of the night. It is the sound of a bookbinder. While you sleep, another artisan is working, continuing the process you started. The pages you and other students copy during the day are collected, and under the cool cover of darkness, the bookbinder begins his patient, meticulous work. The bookbinder's craft is as specialized as the ink makers or the paper finishers. He will take the loose sheets of vellum, Carefully collate them in the correct order, and then sew them together with strong wax thread. The tapping you hear is likely the sound of him using a small wooden mallet to gently flatten the folded spines of the gatherings, ensuring they will lie flat and uniform when bound. It's a quiet, repetitive task, perfect for the silent hours of the night. He will then prepare the cover. For a prestigious book like your Al-Ghazali, the cover will not be simple. It will be made of fine goat leather, often dyed a deep red or brown. The leather will be stretched over thin wooden boards. Then comes the most intricate part, the tooling. The bookbinder will use heated metal tools, small stamps with geometric or floral designs, to press patterns into the leather, creating a beautiful textured cover. Often, a large central medallion design will be surrounded by a series of repeating borders. There might be a protective leather flap, emblazon al-mizan, or tongue of the balance, that folds over the foredge of the book to protect the pages. This distinctive style of Islamic binding, with its intricate geometric tooling and protective flap, is a hallmark of the craft. It makes the book not just a vessel for text, but a true work of art. The process is slow, requiring immense patience and a steady hand. No wonder he works at night, free from the distractions of the day. Lying on your mat, you picture the bookbinder in his small, lamplit workshop. You see his focused expression, his sure hands moving over the leather. You are connected to him, this man you may have never met. You are two parts of the same whole, two artisans in a long chain of production. It's a comforting thought. The work is not just yours, it is shared. This division of labor, from the paper maker to the scribe, to the binder, to the illuminator, who might add gold leaf to the chapter headings, is the major historical fact that allowed Timbuktu to become a veritable book factory. It was a sophisticated assembly line process for handmade goods, a system of artisanal mass production that was incredibly efficient for its time. You drift in and out of sleep, the rhythmic tapping a strange and soothing lullaby. Your mind, in this hazy state between waking and dreaming, drifts to another obscure fact you learned. Some of the most valuable books were said to have a tiny amount of musk or powdered ambergris mixed into the binding paste. The idea was that as the book was handled over the years, the warmth of the reader's hands would release a faint, pleasant perfume, making the act of reading a multi-sensory experience. It is a detail that historians find charming but difficult to verify, as centuries of time would have faded any such scent. You imagine your copy of Al-Ghazali, centuries from now, faintly smelling of the deep, mysterious ocean. The thought is so strange, so poetic, that it finally untethers you from the waking world. The gentle tapping from the bookbinder's workshop fades, and you sink back into a deep and dreamless sleep. The city works while you rest, its quiet, scholarly heart beating on through the night. The rooster, your ever-punctual and vocally gifted neighbor, signals the first hint of dawn. Your second day begins just as the first one did, with a change in the air and a gradual awareness of the world returning to life. You rise from your mat, the aches of yesterday having settled into a dull, familiar stiffness. The routine is already a comfort. The splash of cool water on your face, the simple tunic, the weight of the satchel on your shoulder. You don't feel rested, precisely. You feel ... reset, ready for another day. Of the same quiet, focused labor as you step into the street, the air is thick with the smell of damp earth. It must have rained for a short while in the deepest part of the night, a rare and precious gift. The sand is dark and firm underfoot, and the usual dust has been settled, leaving the air tasting clean and fresh. The pre-dawn light seems softer, diffused by the lingering moisture. It's a beautiful, peaceful morning. You could almost forget you have a 10-hour shift of philosophical transcription ahead of you. You decide to take a slightly different route to your master's courtyard, one that takes you past the homes of the city's wealthiest merchants. These are not ostentatious palaces. From the outside, they look much like the other houses, tall, mud brick structures with flat roofs and heavy, unassuming wooden doors. The wealth of Timbuktu is a private affair. The luxury is on the inside, in the cool, tiled courtyards, the fine rugs from the east, the closets full of expensive damask robes, and of course, the libraries. This architectural modesty is a key feature of the city. It's a form of social camouflage, preventing the overt displays of wealth that might attract envy or the unwanted attention of powerful rulers. It's the 14th century equivalent of driving a sensible sedan. Even though you could afford a fleet of sports cars, you arrive at the courtyard to find you are the first student there. Even the master has not yet emerged from his private quarters. The courtyard is empty and silent, save for the dripping of water from the edge of the awning, a remnant of the night's rain. The flagstones are dark and damp. You choose your usual spot, unroll your mat, and lay out your tools. You take the vellum pages you completed yesterday out of your satchel and look at them in the soft morning light. They look good. The lines are straight. The ink is a consistent, deep black. The letters are clear and well-formed. A quiet satisfaction settles over you. It is the simple, profound pleasure of a job done well. Your master emerges, giving you a silent nod of approval for your punctuality. He is followed by the servant who carries a tray, but instead of the usual mint tea, this morning he carries small bowls of sombi, a sweet and creamy rice pudding, often flavored with cinnamon and nutmeg. It's a breakfast for a special occasion, or perhaps just a whim of the master. The warm, fragrant pudding is a welcome surprise, a small luxury to start the day. This simple meal highlights a major historical fact about the city's position. Timbuktu was a nexus of trade routes, and this was reflected in its cuisine. Spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, which were not native to the region, would have arrived via the same trans-Saharan caravans that carried books and silks, making them expensive but available luxuries. As you eat your sambi, you notice a new addition to the courtyard. Leaning against the wall is a tall bundle of reeds, freshly cut. These are for making new pens. The calamus you use is a disposable tool. The tip dulls with use and must be constantly resharpened with a special knife. Eventually, the whole pen must be discarded and a new one fashioned. This is a task every student must master. A poorly cut pen will blotch, scratch, and hold ink unevenly. You recall an obscure and slightly frustrating tidbit of scribal lore. It was said that the best reeds for pen making grew only on the banks of rivers, flowing from east to west. Whether this was true or just a superstition to make students walk further to find reeds is a question best left to the botanists of history. You eye the pile of fresh reeds. You'll need to cut a new pen later today. Another small, essential skill in the life of a scholar scribe. For now, you finish your pudding, the sweet, comforting taste lingering on your tongue. The other students begin to trickle in, their faces soft with sleep. A new day of work is about to begin. With the unexpected luxury of the rice pudding still warming your stomach. You settle into the day's work. The process is familiar now, a well-worn groove in your mind. You uncap your ink, take up your pen, and find your place in Al-Ghazali's dense thicket of prose. The air, still clean from the rain, feels charged with potential. The scratching of pens begins its daily chorus, a sound that has already become as natural and constant as your own breathing. Today, you are working on a section about the classification of knowledge. Al-Ghazali, in his methodical way, divides all human knowledge into different categories: religious sciences, intellectual sciences, praiseworthy knowledge, and blameworthy knowledge. It's an intricate intellectual framework, a grand map of the human mind. As you copy the words, you find yourself organizing your own thoughts, categorizing your own limited knowledge. The act of transcription is becoming an act of internalization. You are not just a copy machine. You are a student, absorbing the text through your very fingertips. A few hours into the morning, a new figure enters the courtyard. He is not a student or a merchant. He is an illuminator, an artist. He is here to see the master about a different project. He carries with him a small leather-bound portfolio. The master greets him warmly, and the artist opens his portfolio, revealing a page from a magnificent copy of the Koran. The text itself is a bold, beautiful script, but it is the decoration that takes your breath away. The chapter heading is written in gold leaf that shimmers in the light, surrounded by a complex interlace of geometric patterns in brilliant blue, red, and green. The artist is a master of his craft. He and Sheikh Mohammed discuss the work in low tones, pointing to different parts of the page. The illuminator uses pigments made from ground minerals, lapis lazuli for blue, malachite for green, cinnabar for red. These materials were incredibly expensive, often more valuable than the gold itself. The use of such rich materials speaks to the immense wealth generated and spent within this scholarly economy. The presence of these specialized artisans is a key historical fact demonstrating the maturity of the Timbuktu book trade. This was not just about basic literacy, it was about creating objets d'art of the highest quality. The finished book, with its fine vellum, expert calligraphy, intricate illumination, and tooled leather binding, was a symphony of artistic and technical skill, a testament to the city's cultural and economic power. It was the ultimate luxury good, a demonstration of wealth and piety in one beautiful package. You try to focus on your own, unadorned page of Al-Ghazali, but it's hard not to feel a little inadequate. Your neat black script seems terribly plain, next to the riot of color and gold on the illuminator's page. But your work is the foundation. Without the scribe, the illuminator has nothing to decorate. You are the skeleton, he provides the beautiful skin. Or so you tell yourself to feel. Better. The illuminator packs up his portfolio and leaves, the courtyard returning to its usual studious quiet. The memory of the brilliant colors, however, lingers in your mind as the sun climbs higher. You pause to cut a new pen from the fresh reeds. You select a straight, sturdy stock, and with your penknife, you make a series of precise cuts. You carve the nib, split it carefully down the middle to create the ink reservoir, and then shape the point. It's a form of small-scale sculpture. You test it on a scrap of papyrus. The line is clean and sharp. You recall an obscure belief you heard from an older student. A scribe should never let another person use his pen. The belief was that the pen became attuned to the scribe's hand and spirit, and another person's touch would disrupt its balance. While historians would likely attribute this to simple hygiene or a desire not to have your tools ruined by a clumsy colleague, it adds a certain mystique to the humble reed pen. It's not just a tool. It's a personal instrument, a partner in your work. You dip your newly fashioned pen into your ink pot. It feels good in your hand, light and responsive. You turn back to the vellum page, ready to fill it with clear. Black lines dot the midday meal arrives, the same simple millet porridge as yesterday. The brief luxury of the morning's rice pudding is now a distant, pleasant memory. As you eat, you listen to the master discuss a finer point of inheritance law with Kareem and another senior student. The topic is complex, involving the division of property in a family with multiple wives and children, some of whom may have been born into slavery and later manumitted. It's a dry, technical discussion, but it's a window into the social fabric of the empire. This brings to mind a crucial and often misunderstood historical fact about the Mali Empire, its relationship with slavery. It was a society where slavery was widespread and integral to the economy, as it was in many parts of the world at the time. Slaves worked in the gold mines and the salt caravans and in the agricultural estates that fed the cities. However, the institution was complex and governed by Islamic law, which granted certain rights to the enslaved and provided paths to freedom. A person's enslaved status was not necessarily permanent or hereditary in all cases. The very discussion your master is having about the inheritance rights of a freedman's children shows a society grappling with these legal and social complexities. It's a far cry from the chattel slavery that would later define the transatlantic slave trade, but it was a system of bondage nonetheless. The conversation in the courtyard turns from law to logistics. One of the senior students is preparing to leave Timbuktu, his studies complete. He is returning to his home in Walata, a city far to the west, and Sheikh Mohammed is advising him on which caravan to join for the journey. They discuss the reputation of different caravan leaders, the safest routes, and the best time to depart to avoid the worst of the heat. This is practical, essential knowledge. A scholar's life was not always confined to the cloistered courtyard. Many, like your fellow student, would travel great distances to study with a famous master, and their education included learning how to navigate the wider world. As you listen, you think about the sheer amount of paper used for more mundane matters. While you write on precious vellum, the city's merchants, administrators, and even your master, for his legal rulings, use paper. Paper had arrived in the Islamic world from China centuries earlier, and the technology was well established. But there was a strange, obscure practice among some merchants that you once overheard. For their most important ledgers, they would use paper that had a specific, almost invisible watermark embedded in it during production, made by a particular family of paper makers in Fez. This watermark, identifiable only when held up to the light, was a guarantee of quality and a deterrent against forgery. It was a secret paper-based security system. Whether this was a widely known practice or just the paranoid habit of few very rich traders is something only those long gone merchants would know. The discussion of travel plans has made you feel restless. You look down at your half-finished page of Al-Ghazali. You have been in Timbuktu for 3 years. Your own home is a month's journey away. Sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, a wave of homesickness will wash over you, a longing for the multi, familiar tastes and sounds of your childhood. But then you remember why you are here, to gain knowledge, to become a link in the great chain, to one day, perhaps, become a master like Sheikh Mohammed yourself, with your own courtyard full of students. The thought is enough to banish the restlessness. It anchors you. The break is over. The empty bowls are cleared away. You pick up your new pen, the one you carved this morning. It feels perfectly balanced in your hand. You dip it in the ink, the dark liquid clinging to the freshly cut nib. You touch it to the vellum, and the scratching sound resumes, pulling you back into the deep, quiet river of your work. The journey home can wait. The journey through this book is the one that matters now. The afternoon wears on, a slow march of ink and vellum. You have reached a section of the book that is, to be blunt, a little boring. Al-Ghazali is meticulously listing and refuting the arguments of various obscure philosophical schools that have long since faded into history. It is a necessary part of his larger argument, a scholarly due diligence, but it lacks the poetic flair of his passages on spirituality or the sharp clarity of his logic. Your mind begins to drift as your hand continues to move, copying words that feel like intellectual dust. Your gaze wanders around the courtyard. You see the servant boy, the one with the silent feet, sitting in a shady corner, meticulously cleaning a brass tray, polishing it with a cloth until it gleams. His concentration is as intense as any of the students. You wonder about his life. Is he an orphan, taken in by the master? Is he from poor family, working here to send a few cowrie? Shell's home? He is a part of this world of knowledge, yet he stands at its edge, an observer, a facilitator. His work, though unscholarly, is essential. Without him, the tea would not arrive, the meals would not be served, the courtyard would not be clean. He is the invisible ink that makes the whole enterprise legible. Historians know a great deal about the scholars of Timbuktu, but the lives of their servants, the anonymous majority, are almost entirely undocumented. A profound silence in the historical record. Your mind drifts further out of the courtyard and back to the market you passed yesterday. You remember the Tuareg salt merchant, his face veiled in indigo? The Tuareg people, the legendary blue men of the desert, were the undisputed masters of the trans-Saharan trade. This is a major historical fact, their control over the key salt mines at Tagasa, and the caravan routes was the logistical backbone of the entire West African economy. They were the arteries through which the lifeblood of commerce, salt going south, gold, and other goods going north flowed. Their relationship with the settled empires of the Sahel, like Mali, was complex, an ever-shifting, a delicate dance of trade, tribute, and occasional conflict. They were not subjects of the empire, but proud and independent partners, a formidable desert power in their own right. You are so lost in your thoughts of desert caravans that you make a mistake, a small one, but a definite one. You accidentally repeat a word as small and that doesn't belong. Your heart sinks. You look at the errant word, a tiny black stain on the otherwise perfect page of expensive vellum. Panic flickers for a moment. What do? You can't just scribble it out. That would be a horrifying breach of protocol. You catch the eye of Karim, your more experienced fellow student, and gestures subtly at your page with a pained expression. He gives you a tiny reassuring nod. There is a way to fix this. It's a delicate operation. You need a special knife, one with a curved razor-sharp blade, much sharper than your pen-cutting knife. Later, when the master is not looking, Karim will lend you his. You will use the blade to very, very carefully scrape the ink and the thinnest possible layer of the vellum surface away. If you are skilled, the mistake will vanish, leaving only a slightly rougher patch on the page that will be almost invisible once it is written over. It's the 14th century version of a backspace key, but one that requires the steady hand of a surgeon. This technique of scraping and correcting was a common, if stressful, part of a scribe's life. You read a strange, obscure story once about a scribe so clumsy that his finished manuscripts were noticeably thinner than when he started. Having scraped away half the vellum in corrections, you pray that is not your fate. The mistake, a tiny black mark, now feels like a monumental failure. It mocks you from the page. For the rest of the afternoon, you work with a new heightened level of focus, born of pure, unadulterated fear. The call to the Asar prayer is a welcome reprieve, not just from the work, but from the simmering anxiety over your mistake. As soon as the master rises and heads towards the mosque, Karim discreetly passes you the scraping knife. It is a beautiful and terrifying object. The blade is curved like a small crescent moon and honed to a wicked edge. The handle is smooth, polished bone. You feel like you're holding a magical artifact, one that can either fix your problem or make it catastrophically worse. You decide to wait until after the prayer. You need to approach this task with a calm mind and a steady hand, and right now, you have neither. At the Sanka Mosque. You perform the ritual ablutions with extra care, the cool water on your wrists, and face a welcome balm to your frayed nerves. As you join the rows of worshippers, you find your mind is not on the divine. It is on the tiny, errant and sitting on that expensive sheet of vellum. You go through the motions of the prayer, the standing, the bowing, the prostration, but your focus is inward, rehearsing the delicate surgery you are about to perform. You try to absorb the calm of the space, the quiet devotion of the men around you, hoping some of it will seep into you by osmosis. One of the most remarkable historical facts about the mosques of Timbuktu, particularly Jingerber, Senghor, and Sidi Yahya, is that they formed the core of the university. There was no single central university building. Instead, these three main mosques anchored the intellectual life of the city. Individual masters like Sheikh Mohammed would hold their classes in the mosques themselves, or more commonly in their own homes, forming a decentralized network of dozens of independent schools. A student would not enroll in the University of Timbuktu. He would attach himself to a specific scholar. This flexible master-apprentice model allowed for a highly personalized and rigorous education, and it is what made the city such a powerful magnet for scholars. It was a university woven into the very fabric of the city's religious and domestic life. After the prayer, you return to the courtyard. The other students are settling back into their work. You, however, take a deep breath and turn your attention to the flawed page. You place it on your wooden plank, securing it firmly. You take the scraping knife from its leather sheath. Your heart is beating a little faster than you'd like. You hold your breath, and with the utmost care, you touch the tip of the blade to the vellum. You begin to scrape. It is a motion that is infinitesimally light. You are not cutting. You are abrading, lifting the dried ink particles from the fibers of the vellum. A tiny pile of black and white dust begins to form. You think of a strange and obscure medical practice you once read about in a book from the master's library. It described a form of eye surgery for cataracts that was practiced by some physicians in the region. It involved a hollow needle and a terrifying amount of confidence. The text was vague on the success rate. The idea that someone would perform such a delicate operation on a living human eye makes your task of scraping a bit of ink off a piece of dead goat skin seem considerably less stressful. The scholarly consensus on the efficacy and prevalence of such advanced medical procedures is, thankfully for the squeamish, still very much open to debate. You focus back on your own delicate operation. The scraping makes a faint, whispery sound. You pause, blow away the dust, and inspect your work. The and is gone. In its place is a slightly fuzzy, thinner patch of vellum. It's not perfect, but it's 1,000 times better than a blatant error. A wave of profound relief washes over you. You let the page sit for a moment before you attempt to write over the corrected spot. You need to use a lighter touch, as the abraded surface will absorb more ink. You dip your pen, carefully wipe the excess ink from the nib, and with a feather-light stroke, you write the correct word. It works. The ink settles a little thicker than the surrounding text, but it is legible and clean. You have done it. You have turned back time, erased a mistake, and restored order to your small universe. You feel a surge of pride that is completely out of proportion to the task. You resisted the urge to just burn the page and start over, which was your first panicked instinct. You have learned something today, not from Al-Ghazali, but from your own mistake. You return Karim's knife with a grateful nod. He winks. It is a small moment of camaraderie, a shared secret in the quiet world of the scribe. The work continues. The final hours of the day's work are colored by your small victory over the errant word. You feel a renewed sense of focus, a quiet confidence that was absent earlier. The light in the courtyard is turning that familiar, lovely shade of gold, and the evening breeze is beginning to stir. Your hand, which ached this morning, now moves with a fluid, tireless rhythm. You are in a state of flow, a deep and satisfying immersion in the task. The words of Al-Ghazali, which seemed so dry and dusty in the afternoon, now seem to hold a quiet beauty. You are no longer just copying them. You are appreciating the craft of their construction. Your master, Sheikh Mohammed, seems to sense the shift in the courtyard's energy. He sets aside his own reading and decides it is time for a story. Not a pop quiz, but a proper story. He tells the tale of Mansa Musa's famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. This is more than just a story. It is the foundational event of Timbuktu's golden age, a major historical fact known across the world. He describes the procession, tens of thousands of soldiers, attendants, and servants. He speaks of the 100 camels, each carrying 100 pounds of pure gold dust. He recounts how the Mansa spent and gave away so much gold in Cairo that he destabilized the entire Mediterranean economy, causing the value of gold to plummet for over a decade. But the master's telling focuses on a different aspect of the story. He emphasizes that Mansa Musa brought back not just a reputation for immense wealth, but also scholars, architects, and most importantly, books. On his return journey, he recruited the Andalusian poet and architect Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, who would go on to design the Niger Mosque and introduce new building techniques to the region. He brought back countless manuscripts, laying the foundation for the great libraries of Timbuktu. The master's point is clear. The gold was temporary, a fleeting spectacle. The knowledge, the books, the culture of learning, that was the real treasure. That was the enduring legacy. It's a masterful piece of storytelling, a way of reminding his students of the importance of their work and their place in a grand historical tradition. He's basically giving a motivational speech, but in a way that is infinitely more dignified and effective than any modern corporate retreat. As you listen, you recall a strange and obscure detail associated with the great Mansa's legend. It is said that among his vast entourage was a royal cook whose sole job was to cultivate a small, portable garden of fresh herbs and spices on the back of a specially designated camel. This was to ensure that the Mansa's meals, even in the middle of the barren desert, could be seasoned to his exact liking. It's a detail so wonderfully absurd and extravagant that it's hard to know if it's true. Historians have found no definitive proof, but it persists as a testament to the sheer, almost unimaginable scale of the wealth and organization involved in the pilgrimage. A walking spice rack. Only a king. The story ends as the light begins to fade. The master's voice, which had risen with the drama of the tale, settles back into its usual quiet rumble. The students are silent for a moment, absorbing the scale of the history they have just heard. It reframes your day's work. You are not just copying a book. You are tending to the legacy of kings. You are polishing the real treasure of the empire. It's a humbling and deeply inspiring thought. The call to the Maghrib prayer, the sunset prayer, finally comes, signaling the true end of the working day. With a sense of quiet purpose, you begin to pack away your things. You place the corrected page carefully in your satchel, its small imperfection now a secret badge of honor. You have not just copied today, you have learned, you have repaired, and you have listened. It was a good day's work. As you pack your satchel for the final time today, there is a sense of completion in the air. The day, with its small dramas and quiet labors, is drawing to a close. Sheikh Mohammed dismisses you all with a simple, "Go in peace." There are no further instructions, no assignments for the evening. It is understood that your education does not stop when you leave the courtyard. You are expected to spend some part of your evening reviewing your work, memorizing passages, or reading from other texts. The learning is constant, a river that flows through every part of your day. You leave the master's home and step into the embrace of the Timbuktu twilight. The streets are alive now in this brief, pleasant interlude between the heat of the day and the deep stillness of the night. The oil lamps are lit, casting a warm, inviting glow. The smell of cooking fires is everywhere, a rich tapestry of roasting meats, savory stews, and baking bread. You walk slowly, savoring the feeling of release, the freedom of being untethered. From your mat on your vellum, the ache in your hand and back has returned, a dull, physical reminder of your long hours of work. You decide against going straight home. Instead, you find yourself drawn towards the great open space near the Jingerbur Mosque. In the evenings, this area transforms into an informal social hub. It's here that you see the true diversity of the city. Merchants from different caravans gather in groups, their varied clothing and dialects a testament to the city's reach. You see Tuareg nomads, their indigo veils a stark contrast to the white robes of the local Songhai people. You see Fulani herdsmen and Bambara traders. This incredible ethnic and linguistic diversity is a core historical fact of the Malayan Empire. The empire was not a monolithic entity, but a vast, multi-ethnic federation held together by a network of trade and a powerful ruling class. Timbuktu was its crown jewel, the place where all these different threads came together. You find a quiet spot on a low wall to sit and watch the city live and breathe. You are not the only student here. You see small groups gathered, engaged in quiet but animated debate. They are not arguing about gossip or daily trifles. They are arguing about theology, about law, about philosophy. One group is passionately debating a point from Aristotle, whose works were known here through Arabic translations and commentaries. This is the city's third space, not the formal classroom of the master's courtyard, nor the private space of one's own room, but a public forum for intellectual exchange. It's like a citywide coffee shop, but the beverage of choice is pure, unadulterated argument. As you watch, you notice a man selling something you've never seen before. He has a small tray of what look like blackened, lumpy sticks. A fellow student sitting nearby notices your curiosity. At his chewing stick, he explains, from the Salvadora persica tree. It cleans the teeth. He tells you an obscure cultural tidbit. Some devout Muslims favor the chewing stick, or miswak, because the Prophet Muhammad was said to have used one. It's a natural, disposable toothbrush, and its use is considered both a matter of hygiene and a pious act. The idea of cleaning your teeth by gnawing on a piece of wood seems strange, but also ingenious. It's another small example of how faith, tradition, and practicality are woven into the smallest details of daily life here. The sky has deepened to a star-dusted velvet. The evening is wearing on, and you know you should head home. You still have your own reviewing to do, and the rooster will show no mercy in the morning, but you linger for a moment longer. You think about the book you're copying, the one sitting safely in your satchel. You think of the hands that wrote it centuries ago, the hands that will read your copy in the future. You are a bridge, a conduit, a small, temporary custodian of a vast and timeless river of knowledge. It is a heavy responsibility, but tonight, walking through this vibrant, living city, it does not feel like a burden. It feels like a privilege. You finally rise from the wall and turn your steps towards home. The sounds of the city, a gentle chorus at your back. Your small room is a sanctuary of silence. You light a single small oil lamp, its flame a tiny dancing point of warmth in the darkness. The light casts long, flickering shadows on the mud brick walls, making the familiar space feel intimate and new. You eat your simple meal of bread and dried fish, the saltiness a sharp, pleasant taste. Tonight you do not feel the bone-deep exhaustion of the previous day. Instead, you feel a quiet energy, a hum of purpose. After you eat, you do as expected. You pull out the 10 pages of vellum you have copied over the past 2 days. You lay them out carefully on your sleeping mat. In the soft, wavering light of the lamp, the black ink seems to float on the creamy surface of the vellum. You read. You are not just proofreading for errors, though you do spot a small one, a slightly misshapen letter, that you make a mental note to scrape and fix tomorrow. No, you are reading for understanding. You are retracing Al-Ghazali's arguments, following his logical steps, absorbing his wisdom. You read a passage aloud, your voice a low murmur in the quiet room. Hearing the words spoken gives them a different weight, a new dimension. This intense focus on memorization and internalization is a key feature of the educational system. The ultimate goal was not just to own a book, but to become the book, to hold its knowledge within you, ready to be recalled at a moment's notice. The major historical fact is that this was a society with a profound oral manuscript culture. Knowledge was transmitted through both the written word and the spoken word, and the two were deeply intertwined. A great scholar was not just someone who had a large library, but someone who could recite and expound upon dozens of major texts from memory. Your master, Sheikh Muhammad, could likely read you this entire book of Al-Ghazali without ever opening the cover. That is the standard you are striving for. As you read, you think about the final, and perhaps most mysterious, part of a book's journey, the library. Where would your finished copy of Al-Ghazali end up? It might be sold to a wealthy merchant who wants to display his piety and learning. It might be purchased by another scholar for his own reference. Or it might be donated to the library of one of the great mosques. This practice of donating books, known as WAQF, was a common and highly respected form of religious charity. These mosque libraries were some of the first truly public libraries in the region, open to any student who wished to use them. You recall one final, strange and obscure piece of library lore. It was said that some of the most ancient and valuable texts in the oldest libraries were not stored on shelves, but were individually wrapped in cloth and kept in large, leather-covered chests, safe from light and dust. Each chest would have a librarian whose sole job was to care for its specific contents, to know each book intimately, and to periodically air them out to prevent mildew. The preservation of knowledge was an active, ongoing, and deeply personal responsibility. Whether this system of chest librarians was a widespread reality or just a romantic tale about the good old days is, like so many details of the past, uncertain. But it speaks to a culture that did not just value books, but revered them. You finish your review. The lamp is burning low, the oil nearly spent. You carefully stack your precious pages and place them safely back in their satchel. You have done your duty for the day. You have moved knowledge from one vessel to another. You have tended to your small section of the garden. You extinguish the lamp, plunging the room into a soft moonlit darkness. You lie down on your mat, ready for rest, ready for another day of the same slow and sacred work. And now, our time in Timbuktu comes to a close. The student sleeps, his mind full of words and ink. The bookbinder's gentle tapping has ceased. The last lamps in the city have been extinguished, and the great silence of the Sahara enfolds the sleeping houses. The stars, ancient and indifferent, wheel slowly overhead, just as they did then, just as they do now, above your own home. Let the rhythm of his day become a gentle current, pulling you down into your own deep rest. Let the quiet satisfaction of his work soothe your own mind. There's no need to hold on to the story any longer. Let the pages turn to darkness. Let the ink of your thoughts fade into the soft vellum of your dreams. There's nothing left to do now. But sleep, sleep now.